Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to a Linfamy History of Japan episode. It's called Life of Early Japanese Peasants. Rice farming is a B_CH. You know what you're saying there. You know what you're saying. If you want to check out my previous reactions, remember the playlist card will be at the top. Just click on it and you'll be able to access the videos. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Getting married was different in Heian, Japan. The husband and wife didn't immediately move out and live together. In fact, they couldn't. They'd die. They'd die instantly. They'd walk into their new house and bleh, dead. Okay, not that fast, but they'd die. And here's why. I would die of starvation without your generous support, so please consider supporting the channel. So we're talking about peasants in this video, the common man and women. The Heian era is known for art and culture and nobles living posh lives, but let's be clear, those idiots made up a tiny speck of the population. Almost the entire aristocracy lived in the capital of Heian, Kyo. Japan at the time had a population of 6 to 7 million people. The capital had 100 to 150,000 people, and the aristocracy made up only 1 to 2% of the capital's population. Even more amazing, the people who held any actual influence in the government numbered only 100 to 125 men. Outside the capital, Japan was still an agrarian culture based on rice farming. They didn't really have villages, even. Peasants lived in loose settlements, I guess you could call them hamlets, and households were mostly independent. It was common for a house to be more than 100 meters away from the next house. Because of their independence, households were pretty big, about 8 to 10 people. Marriage arrangements among the peasants happened like this. It was similar to aristocratic marriages. The wife kinda got the short end of the stick with regards to responsibility. The husband basically visited to make sperm deposits, then went on his merry way. Newlyweds didn't move into a new home. They stayed separate, living in their own parents' households, like they had been before marriage. The husband would visit his wife once in a while at night, because, babies. Then he would just go back home. Children were raised in the wife's household. This phase of living separately wasn't permanent most of the time, although in some communities it would last for the entire marriage, but usually it lasted 5 or 6 years, after which they would finally move in together. This marriage situation gave them some interesting family dynamics. On the upside, kids were raised in a home where there were always people to take care of them. Mother could go work on the farm, while grandma and her sisters watched Junior. The wife had more freedom than if she had lived in the home of her husband's or the in-laws. On the downside, the husband had less freedom because he still lived under his parents' roof, writing angsty poetry. This also gave the older generation a lot more control over the lives of the younger generation. So why didn't a new couple just move out and escape their parents' control? Because wet rice farming is a bitch. Let me tell you how to grow rice. You know those pictures of people in Asia in the rice paddies? You know what they're doing? It's called transplanting. In the Heian period, this process became widespread. The old way of planting rice was pretty easy. You just threw down a bunch of seeds, water, and let them grow. This was called direct seeding. Transplanting was different. Now the idea was introduced well before the Heian, but it required so much work that many people said, screw it. Here's how it works. First, you plant the seeds and grow them in a dry seed bed. Then you prepare your field, making everything even. When the seeds grow into seedlings, you flood your field and take out each seedling and plant them one by one in the field in neat rows. These were huge fields. Imagine planting each seedling one by one to fill the entire field. Not only that, you gotta do it fast. The soil can't be too dry or wet. Too wet and the seedlings won't tick. So you have to fill the entire paddy with seedlings and you have a limited time. The paddy is drained mid-season for the rice to mature in dry soil. Then it's harvested. Flooding the fields gives you higher yields because of less competition from weeds. Rice likes water, weeds don't. But transplanting required more people than one family had, so families had to hire help. And this is why couples couldn't have survived if they had moved out immediately after marriage. You needed a lot of people. A large household still had to rely on hiring outside labor. A married couple, a household of 2, was way too small to run a farm. By staying with their own families, it kept the family labor supply stable. As if farming life wasn't tough enough, the Japanese court did something that made life even tougher. But the hardy peasants turned a bad thing into something that made them even more successful. One of the responsibilities of the states was to ensure the public could freely use uncultivated land. The rich could not reserve free land for their own use. Commoners used free land for all kinds of things, like grazing animals, collecting wood, and catching Pokemon. But over time, the states started giving more and more uncultivated land to temples, shrines, and powerful clans. These land grants shrunk the amount of land available for grazing, forcing people to keep their animals inside stables all year because they couldn't go out to graze. People either had to teach their horses to live on peasant suffering or find another food source for them: rice stalks. Remember, only the tip of rice stalks contains rice grains, just the tip. The rest can be used as animal feed. These animals were mostly work animals rather than yummy animals, and likely very few farmers had them. This actually introduced a new source of income for farmers, selling hay to animal owners. Keeping animals at home all year allowed owners to collect their poo for fertilizer. It had a huge effect on peasant life. The availability of poo increased crop yields. Usually fields went fallow after planting crops for 1 or a few years. Manure and the widespread use of a relatively new technology, the plow, allowed people to use their fields every year. Another effect of keeping animals at home all year was that it kept families together. Taking animals out to graze was a big deal. Someone had to take time out of the year leading them to pasture. Without that, the animals and family members were available all year long at home. In theory, the labor cost of transplanting and the monetary cost of plows should have encouraged people to form closer and larger communities, but we don't see that in the Heian. There were some hamlets with houses built close together, but they were the exceptions. Peasant households remained independent in the Heian. Closely cooperating communities will pop up in the subsequent Kamakura period. Hey guys, want to see more history videos? Check them out on the side here. See you there. Shout out to the 2 new patrons this week, Muinko and Rika. Thank you so much, you guys. Alright, much love, y'all. Spread the knowledge.
Well, that's an interesting marriage. You're living with your parents, you're married, and you only visit your wife when you want to create babies, and then you leave her with her family. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But yeah, I don't know, maybe it created less fights. People stayed in marriages far longer because, they barely saw each other. They only saw each other probably during the night or whenever they had a chance. And it's interesting. I don't know if everybody would like a relationship like that in our modern era, in our modern times. I don't know. There is such things as long distance dating and long distance marriages. It's not the norm, but it sounds interesting. It sounds very interesting what they had to do. And of course it's due to circumstances. Living in the hamlets, grazing the land, it requires a lot of hands on deck, and they still even have to hire more people to come and help them with the rice paddies. And yeah, or should I say rice fields, not rice paddies. Yeah, rice fields. And now we find out that the rich and the more important people continue to cut up the land and give it to themselves and give it to the religious sector of the country, and there was less land for people to graze their animals, and it created a new opportunity for the farmers who cultivated rice, where they could now sell the leftover stalk, if I can say that, of the rice, the straws, and give it to those who herd animals and give them animal feed. So that's quite interesting, how a new economy was created out of the selfishness of the elite class of Japan during that time. So I guess maybe it's also like a lesson that you can try and put down the poor. You can try and try and box them into little corners far away from you, and try to make yourself more important by taking away land and space for them to survive. But they will always find a way. They will adapt to the situation. But I think maybe don't poke them too much. Don't poke the poor and downtrodden too much, because that can result in rebellions and anarchy. So yeah, I'm kind of digressing from the story here, but definitely this was quite interesting to hear that, you know, the family system was not really what I would have expected. You know, like if you got married, then you have your own home, your own homestead somewhere. You stay there, you create your own family. But instead, here they stayed with their families continuously, and they got married, but you know, they couldn't stay together. But yeah, this was interesting. This was very, very interesting. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Remember, if you like the video, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I will see you next week. Okay? Bye-bye.